My father spent 2 years building a model train station. It was 25 meters and took up 2 rooms in our garage. He had mountains made from cement, a lake made from epoxy resin. He had the working trains going all around. It was a masterpiece. But he also started building me a den in the forest. Foundations were laid, walls were up, water pipes installed, and then he stopped. That was 30 years ago. The den is still there, half built, covered in trees. Same person, opposite outcomes. And what's the difference? When motivation fades, it doesn't come back. Here's what most people get wrong about motivation. They treat it like a bank account, something you can withdraw from whenever you need it. But motivation is not a savings account. It's perishable. It expires. And therefore, the projects you delay are often the projects you never finish. My father taught me this without even saying a word, through one completed masterpiece and one abandoned ruin. I want to show you what I learned from watching him and how it changed how I approach everything I build. Let me tell you about the train station. When I was a kid, my father decided to build a model of the Barcelona Estació de França at home. Not a kit, not a simple hobby project, but a full recreation that would end up taking over 2 rooms of our garage. He built mountains from cement and he painted them green. He created a lake with epoxy resin, tunnels where the trains disappeared and emerged at the other side, trees, bushes, and even animals on the mountainside. The station itself was entirely built from wood. He used his own calculations, his own measurements, no instructions, but it looked exactly like the real thing. And the tracks worked. We had real locomotives running on 12 volts. He built a control desk in the corner of the room. He had switches to divert trains to different tracks. He had a traffic light system. Everything. He was obsessed. For 2 years, this project consumed him. Every day, every weekend, every second he had spare, building, adjusting, perfecting. When it was finished, it stayed in the house for a while. And eventually he sold it to someone from Madrid. In my family, we have a saying for when my father gets like this. We call it le da la vena. It translates literally to he has the vein, but it actually means he has the urge, a spontaneous impulse to do something, acting on gut instinct in a way that would seem irrational to others. Building a 25 square meter train station in your garage definitely seems irrational, but he did it and he loved it. And I loved playing with the trains when he let me. But here's where it gets interesting, because the train station was not the only project my father started. He also decided to build me a den in the forest near our house. This was going to be something special, not a tree house or a simple shelter, but a proper structure with cement foundations, brick walls, electricity, running water, a place we could actually spend time in. He started with the same energy as the train station, laid the foundations, built the walls, installed the water pipes, got to the point that it was time to put the roof on, and then he stopped. The motivation disappeared. Maybe summer ended and it got cold, maybe something else caught his attention, maybe he waited too long to push to completion. I don't know exactly what happened. All I know is it was 30 years ago, and the den is still there in our forest, half built, covered in foliage and trees now. It's a monument to motivation that faded before it could be fulfilled. You see, it's the same person, same capability, same creative drive, but completely different outcomes. The train station existed because he followed through while motivation was at its peak. The den exists in a ruin because somewhere along the way, one of the conditions slipped. And this contrast taught me something I think about constantly. Motivation is not a renewable resource. It doesn't wait for you. It arrives unpredictably, peaks briefly, and then it fades whether you use it or not. The only question is whether you act while it's there. My father had the vena for both projects, but the vena isn't enough. You have to channel it, complete it, follow through before it fades. Otherwise, you end up with ruins in your forest. Projects that almost were, ideas that never became real. Over the years, watching my father and examining my own patterns, I've identified 3 conditions that must align before I act on any idea. Condition 1, capacity. You have the time and resources to carry out the idea. You're not in the middle of something else. You're not overcommitted. There is actual space in your life for this project. If you don't have the capacity, it doesn't matter how motivated you are. The project will stall when reality catches up. Condition 2, motivation. You have a peak level of desire to bring this project to life. Not mild interest, not that would be nice someday, but a genuine burning motivation that makes the project feel urgent. This is the vena, what makes you want to start the project immediately. The feeling that this idea matters right now. Condition 3, timing. The idea feels right. It feels like the right moment to act. Something intangible but real tells you this is the time. This one's harder to explain, but you know it when you feel it. The alignment of circumstances that makes now the moment. When these 3 align, capacity, motivation, and timing, you must act. Not next week, not when things calm down, now. Because as soon as one fades, the window closes. My father had all 3 when he started the train station. He maintained them for 2 years until completion. He had all 3 when he started my den, but somewhere along the way, one slipped. and 30 years later it remains unfinished. The difference between a masterpiece and a ruin is not capability, it's whether you act while all three conditions hold. I think of this constantly in my own work. When an idea hits me, when I feel the urge, that vena, I evaluate the three conditions immediately. Can I do this? Do I have the capacity? Do I genuinely want to do this? Is this motivation real? And does it feel like the right time? If all three are yes, I start, even if the idea seems excessive to others, even if the scope feels ambitious, and even if conventional wisdom says to wait and plan more carefully. It's because I've learned that waiting is the enemy of completion. Building Circle Cloud happened because the conditions aligned and I acted. I didn't wait until I had more experience and resources. The motivation was there, the capacity was there, and the timing felt right. So I started. The same pattern I repeated with WeUC, and it's the same pattern that repeats with every significant project that I undertake. The projects I've finished are the projects that I started when all three conditions aligned. The projects I never completed are the ones where I hesitated, where I waited for a better moment, where I let one of the conditions fade before beginning. There is a dark side to this, because sometimes you can't act. Sometimes you have the motivation, but not the capacity. Sometimes the timing is wrong for reasons beyond your control. This is painful. Watching motivation fade while circumstances prevent action is one of the most frustrating experiences I know. I have no perfect solution, but I've learned to be honest with myself. If I cannot act now, I acknowledge that the project may never happen. The motivation that exists today may not exist in the same way in 6 months. This honestly helps me prioritize ruthlessly. If something really matters and the conditions align, it must take precedence. Because the alternative is not doing it later. The alternative is likely not doing it at all. Here's what I learned from my father's train station and my father's den. Motivation is perishable. It arrives without warning. It peaks briefly, and it fades whether you act on it or not. The people who build remarkable things aren't necessarily more talented. They're the ones that recognize when conditions align and they act immediately. Three conditions must be present: capacity, the actual ability to do the work; motivation, the burning desire to see it through; and timing, the intangible sense that now is the moment. When all these three align, you must move. Hesitation is not caution. Hesitation is how projects die. My father proved this twice. Once with a masterpiece that took 2 years of focused obsession, and once with a ruin that has stood unfinished for 3 decades. Same person, same creative capability. The only difference is whether he followed through while the motivation peaked. I inherited his tendency. When the urge arrives, often without warning, and often for projects that seem irrational to others. But I also learned from watching what happens when you don't follow through. You do not get the project later when circumstances improve. You get an abandoned foundation in your forest. A reminder of what could have been. Strike while the iron is hot. The iron cools faster than you think. This applies to everything. Business ideas, creative projects, personal goals. The motivation you feel today is not guaranteed to be there tomorrow. I'm not saying act recklessly. The three conditions matter, all three of them. Without capacity, you burn out. Without genuine motivation, you abandon halfway. And without the right timing, you fight against circumstances. But when all three align, you have the capacity, the motivation, and the timing feels right, that's the time to act. Not someday, now. The train station was a masterpiece because my father understood this. The den is a ruin because he forgot. I try not to forget. If this resonated, if you felt a similar urge and wondered whether to act on it or not, like and subscribe. I talk about the philosophy behind building, the principles that guide how I work and live, not productivity hacks or life optimization tricks, just observations from somebody trying to figure it out. If you're a founder building something that matters to you, this channel's for you. I share what I learn along the way, patterns I notice, the mistakes I make, and the principles I keep coming back to. If you want my CEO operating system framework guide, the link is in the description. My father never explained le da la vena. He just lived it. He built masterpieces when he followed through, and he left ruins when he didn't. I watched, I learned, and now I try to apply it. The urge will come for you too. Some project, some idea, something you want to create. When it comes, ask the three questions: capacity, motivation, timing. If all three are yes, don't wait. The iron is hot. Strike now. See you in the next one.